Blankets! Oh yeah. First we will give a short summary of the graphic novel, then we will analyze the characters and then the settings of the story. The graphic novel Blankets from 2011 is written by Craig Thompson. The story is about two brothers who live in the same room sharing a bed. The two boys doesn't want to sleep together and they are very annoyed with each other. The one boy pushes the other boy Craig out of the bed and then they really start fighting. Suddenly they hear steps and concludes that it is their father. The father gets really mad and the two boys try to explain what happened. The father is very scary and mad at the kids. To solve the sleeping problem, he grabbed the one kid and carried him to the cubbyhole, which is a scary little forgotten room behind the wood paneling in the playroom in the house. The cubbyhole is uninsulated, unlit and inhabited, except from spiders and vermin. The father pulls out a bed, throws the boy inside and closes the wood paneling. The boy is now alone and scared in the cubbyhole.
The difference between characters in graphic novels and in conventional novels is that in graphic novels we usually get a visual picture of what the character looks like. Any expressive trait like facial expressions or gestures are shown in the drawing, whereas in a conventional novel any expression is described to us through the text, so we cannot physically see it on paper, but we have to imagine it ourselves. Yet, even though we see the same picture, we all interpret the character differently, like we do with people in real life. So even though the artist has already presented us with a drawing, we are still free to interpret ourselves. The characters in Blankets' facial features are simplified. There's not a lot of detail, however sometimes less is more, as we can amplify through simplicity. Altering the conventional size and shape of facial or body features creates focus and emphasis. For example, in these panels the artist has chosen to increase the size of Phil's eyes. The big eyes symbolize the fear, and we can easily see without a doubt how scared Phil is. Even though there's focus on the eyes, they're not specifically detailed or realistic, they're just abnormally big and are circles with dots in them. The artist has used the same method with some of Greg's expressions. Here are some of the examples. There's one where Greg's eyes are drawn abnormally big, like Phil's eyes are in some of the previous panels. Then there's also a picture of Greg yelling where his mouth is abnormally wide open and he's showing teeth. It's almost as if at first Greg is trying to act like the older brother and like the more mature brother, but at this point his little brother Phil is taking it too far and Greg loses it. And while the kind of wide mouth kind of emphasizes the fact that he's really pissed off and the fact that teeth are showing, which kind of makes me think of animals when they're about to attack their prey, but then they actually get disturbed because the dad comes in, and who's a lot more intimidating, but I'll move on to that later. So the father is a very interesting character because he's drawn very big compared to the two children, or at least a lot bigger than we would expect. And we never really get to see his face properly because it's kind of covered by this beard he's got, and there's a lot of shadows drawn on his face, which kind of has this darkening effect. And personally I find the dad very intimidating and scary, and that may be because of the way he's illustrated and the fact that his face is very pointy and sharp, and well, normally you would kind of, with a character drawn pointy and sharp, you would kind of consider them to be a bit mean or intimidating or not as soft and mild.
Blankets is a 9-page long graphic novel, which does not have one page similar to another. Every visual paragraph and the customization of the panels are original. The graphic novel does in this case not keep a rhythmical construction through the course of the story. The system of the panels varies all the time. For example, on page 4 we have a 2x3 construction, while on all the other pages either have a different construction or big pictures taking up the space. There are a lot of important panels to be found from the beginning to the end of the story. For example, on the first page, on the second panel, where we're introduced to the situation with the two brothers in the same bed. There's also an open panel later in the story on page 6, where the brother is getting pulled by the collar by his father. The reason for the open panel is to emphasize the feeling of terror coming from the brother. On the 8th page, we see a splash page with a lot of symbolism. On the 8th page, we see a splash page with a lot of symbolism. The father has to fight off all the monsters in the dusty room to be able to get to the bed. The splash page also highlights the frightfulness the kid is feeling from the room.